Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Daly, Dr. Jim Daly from Daly Manufacturing. We're going to talk a little bit about something unusual at the first part of this talk, because it's not about one of our products, really. So, in a way, I don't have a financial interest in it, except that keeping you healthy if you're a customer or an employee, I guess I would have a financial interest if you look at it that way. But I'm going to be talking about how masks, face masks work here at first. And we're going to go on in and look at that. Let me share the screen here for you. And this is our talk for this week, preventing COVID and using face masks, social distancing, nutrition. We're interested in all of those topics and just how we can stay healthy, because these are challenging times. Now, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's one of the reasons I want to talk about this today. And the question is, do face masks work? And the answer to that is yes, and we'll explain it. Here we have Boris Johnson, I think. It's hard to tell with a face mask. Well, actually, with that hair of his, it's not that hard to tell. I don't think anybody else has hair like that. But he's the Prime Minister of Britain. But face masks are inconvenient. I was just recently at a trade show, and nobody recognized me, and I didn't recognize anybody else, because on the trade show floor, just about everybody was wearing masks. And you know people, but you can't recognize who they are. So it is inconvenient, but and I don't like wearing masks, and most people don't. However, it's a lot less inconvenient than dying from COVID. So I think it's something that you really should consider doing whenever you can. Now, how serious is COVID? Well, the week ending August 21, in the United States, we had 25,420 cases for that week of COVID in the United States. I think it's even higher now. There were 3,544 people that died from it that week. So if you think about it, well, no, I got that wrong. That 25,000 cases were how many people died. I edited that a while ago, and now I remember why I had that number there. That's how many total people died in the country. 3,544 of the people that died out of that 25,000 were COVID cases. So there's still a lot of people dying out there of other things. But COVID is a big part of the death rate right now. So how bad is the coronavirus? Well, it's pretty bad. Currently, numerous countries are experiencing severe infections that previously did not. New Zealand's having a lot of COVID right now, and they've been almost COVID-free from day one, and suddenly they're getting a lot of it. Kind of a shock to that country, because they were thinking they were almost immune. They're an isolated little island below Australia, and they've done very well, but suddenly they've got it. Suddenly it's being a big resurgence of it in Israel. So, it comes and goes. An interesting fact is, I just read on the news today, it appears like COVID goes in bi-monthly cycles. You'll have a big increase in COVID for about 2 months, and then it tapers off, and then it comes back again later. And nobody's quite sure how this cycle works. But we're looking at maybe having a decline, probably not permanently, maybe it's permanently, but that seems to be a pattern that they're observing across the world, is this 2-month cycle in COVID cases. Well, if you go on the internet, you'll see a lot of people telling you that viruses are too small to be stopped by a face mask. That's It's true that the openings in the face mask, little spaces there, are bigger than a virus. That doesn't mean it doesn't stop it, though. Viruses are quite small, no question. We look at the size of a virus, these are microns up here. Virus, the COVID virus would be right about here, right in there with smoke, tobacco, soot, those kind of things, as far as its size. So it is quite small, no question about it. The openings in the mask are larger. However, if anyone tells you that a virus particle is too small to be blocked by a mask, well, you know they're giving you bad information immediately. And we'll explain why in a little bit. I recently saw a video somebody sent, a person who considered him, said he was a doctor, I guess he was, at a school board meeting testifying why people shouldn't get vaccinations. At the very first thing he said was, "Hello, I'm glad to see everybody out there not wearing those useless face masks." Well, I knew immediately this guy was not somebody I wanted to get information from. Anybody who's got any scientific background should have a better understanding of how filtration works than that. And masks are filters. Your heating and air conditioning guy should know better than that. So we'll talk about that more in depth because it's not how masks work. They work really mostly by trapping particles. Some will get through, and that's okay. And I'll explain why that is also, because you don't have to block all of them. In fact, if you had a mask that only had holes in it that smaller than a virus particle, you probably wouldn't be able to breathe through it. You can make that kind of mask by wrapping your face in saran wrap, and you'll suffocate. You won't die from coronavirus, though. But it's just not what you want to do, not what you're trying to accomplish, is to have a mask that has holes so small that a virus can't get through it. And when you hear people say that, you know that they haven't done their homework, and they're just not giving you good information. And I wouldn't listen to anything else they have to say, frankly. Well, one of the reasons it's not really necessary to block all viruses, because viral load is important in getting an infection. How much of the virus you actually become exposed to. For most viruses, and I don't know exactly for coronavirus yet, but typically it takes about 1,000 virus particles for a normal person to become infected with a virus. It can be more and it can be less depending on the person. But that's estimate from what we know about similar viruses. Now, an infected person just breathing will exhale about 20 particles per minute. So if you're just, close to somebody who's just breathing and not doing anything, you'd have to be there quite a while to get a viral load that would cause an actual infection. Talking can release about 200 virus particles per minute typically. So now if you're at a small restaurant with a little two-person table right across from each other, talking back and forth, you could get infected pretty easily in a few minutes, assuming these are right numbers. And they may be a little bit more, a little bit less. But that gives you an idea of what it takes to get infected. Now, when somebody coughs or sneezes, that's a whole different ball game, because you're really expelling a lot of stuff from your lungs. A cough and sneeze can release as much as 200 million virus particles in one instance. It's huge because you're just projecting a whole bunch of it out of your lungs. And those are really bad. And that's why you really got to be careful under that situation. And even in the same room, you may get exposed to it, not being all that close together. So the kind of exposure you have is critical. I like to think of the virus particles, I like to think about them like dandelions, though. Have you ever had somebody just blow a dandelion in your face and it gets all over your face? I have. Kids like to do that to parents, for instance. I think that's funny. Okay, well, it's not that bad. But that's kind of the experience that you have, and they're right up at you. You're going to get covered with those little seed things that float around. However, if you're standing 5 feet away, you'll get a few of them on you, but not too much. If you're 10 feet away, you might get one or two. If you're 20 feet away, you probably won't get any. So, it's kind of the same principle. The space that you are, the further your distance out, the more it's going to disperse and the less likely you are to be infected by a virus. So that's where our social distancing comes in. That's a critical factor in avoiding exposure to the coronavirus. So if I go out in public, I don't worry about as much a face mask so much if I'm not close to people. I mean, if I'm walking down a sidewalk and there's not people walking beside me or talking or passing or anything like that, I don't have to worry about somebody over on the other side of the street. They're not going to infect me. However, if it's a crowded sidewalk and you're right up there and somebody coughs or sneezes, well, you've had it. You'll get that exposure. So it really depends on the situation, and people need to use common sense about when you're in a dangerous position to get infected. We'll look a little bit more at the COVID's particle size now, because like we said, they're small. And if you look at this is the diameter of the human hair. There's, by comparison, a red blood cell. We're talking about a hair being blown up. But if you blow everything up to this, where a hair would be that diameter, see that little tiny dot down there? You may not even see it, but that's about what a COVID particle would look like. So it's really tiny compared to just about anything we know. COVID virus is about 0.1 micrometers in diameter, 100 nanometers, which is really small. Water is about 0.000282 nanometers, however, or 282 picometers. So it's really small, but a lot smaller than a coronavirus. If you increased a water molecule to the size of a penny and everything around it to the equivalent size, then suddenly that coronavirus molecule would be about the size of a tractor trailer truck. So if I did my calculations right. So, compared to water, it's huge. And they'll have little bits of water stuck to them when they go out. So they're kind of in a vapor. However, let's demonstrate the effectiveness of a mask real quick. I'm going to unshare the screen for just a minute. And, we know that, water is a whole lot smaller, like I say, a penny compared to a tractor trailer truck, than a coronavirus. But let's just pour water in here and see what it does. It's not even coming through. As small as that is, that mask is stopping it. Now, if I put enough pressure on it, it would get through eventually. If I leave it sit there long enough, there'll be a drip or two now and then. But that really, still, it's just blocking the water from getting through. Now, part of that could be because it's causing the fibers to swell up and make those things smaller. But let's try another experiment. I'm going to put one of these surgical face masks on. Okay. And, we know that air is about the same size as water, N2, nitrogen, and oxygen. So let's just get a candle burning here. See if I can blow it out with a face mask on. No. Okay. Air's not getting through it even. So, these very small particles are not getting through there. Now, if you're a skeptic and don't believe what I'm showing you, you can be a scientist yourself and you can go and do your own experiment. If you have a kid with a birthday party, have them try to blow out a candle, birthday candles with a face mask on. They won't be able to do it. It'll frustrate them to no end. So let's go back to our slides now. So, the little particles that we're talking about, that we're breathing out, the virus particles, they will be stopped by a face mask. And the reason, look at this right here. This is okay, let me get this working right. Okay, this is what the face mask looks like under a microscope. 3,000 magnification. Okay, it's just a maze of these little things that virus particle has to work its way through. Because it has moisture attached to it, it'll also stick to those things and adhere to it. So what ends up happening, first of all, two things. It's a barrier, but as a filter, a natural preventive, actually. A lot of us try to avoid chemicals in our diet. We don't like pesticides. We don't like this. We don't like that. But somehow we don't seem to realize that, we need to avoid the virus just as much as those things. But that creates a maze that virus particle has a hard time getting through. So we see over here that masks do two things. One, they reduce the force of the coming out. When you cough, just like I couldn't blow through it, the force of the cough won't blow through it. So it won't be projecting like it does from a cough. A cough or a sneeze can project across a room a lot of virus particles. That blocks that from happening. It will also bind to, like in the little illustration here, a lot of those virus particles will get trapped in there and stick to the mask and won't be released. So it does a good job of blocking a lot of them. It won't get them all. You can see from the illustration that, without the mask, quite a few coming out. But with the mask, a lot of them are blocked or dropped down. A few will come out. But like we said, you've got to reach that threshold, that viral load, in order to become infected. So what the face mask does is really reduce your exposure to that viral load that will cause an infection. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with face masks, not just to say you don't get any of them. Because you can get viruses. I imagine everybody in this country has been exposed to the COVID virus by now. But most people have not gotten sick with COVID yet. In fact, probably a lot of the people who have tested positive for COVID in screening actually never got sick from it because their immune system took care of it before they got sick. And they may not have full immunity to it either. And that's really another topic there. But it makes it where your innate immune system, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute, can deal with the virus before it becomes a full-blown infection. So why is it okay to have some exposure? Let's just talk about the immune system for a little bit here. We can divide the immune system into two types, the innate immunity and the adaptive immunity. The innate immunity is a very rapid response because it doesn't have to identify a particular kind of virus. It uses what is called pathogen recognition receptors. They're able to identify things that have patterns on them, proteins usually, or glycoproteins, that are associated with viruses, ones that are associated typically with bacteria, or some other things even. So they recognize the type of attack that's there and say, this looks like a virus. I'm going to get it. It may be a virus that's very bad. It may be, there's a lot of viruses that don't really bother people much, but they'll go after it just because it's a virus. And the innate immune system can get rid of a lot of stuff. It's a wonderful system. However, if you get a really huge viral load, it won't be able to keep up with it. It's not robust enough to do the whole job by itself. So if you get a big dose of the virus, you're going to get an infection and you're going to start getting sick from it. This is where the adaptive immune system comes in. It's one that makes the antibodies, the T cells to attack virus infected cells, the T helper cells. This one is a specific one, though, to whatever you're infected with. If it's COVID virus, it recognizes that virus and goes after that particular virus. It won't bother any other viruses out there, but it goes just after the one. And it makes an immune response just for that particular pathogen. Now, the problem is it takes a week before this really starts working, and about 2 weeks before it's fully active. So you've got a lot of time there to really have the infection growing and growing and growing in your body and become sick. So, you really want to avoid having to use the adaptive immunity, because for some people, before it really kicks in, they may die from a COVID infection. For other people, even the adaptive immunity has a hard time keeping up once they become so infected. So, when you get to that stage, you're a lot more danger of serious illness. So we want to avoid that. We know we're going to get some exposure to the COVID virus, but what we want to do is have it small enough so that the innate immune response over there will take care of it. And that's basically what the whole idea is with face masks and the social distancing, just to reduce the exposure you have to the virus so that you can handle it yourself. And I've heard other people say, well, there's no proof that face masks work. They're wrong about that. Well, I don't like to use the word proof because I edit a scientific journal. I never let anybody say that they proved anything. We provide evidence for it, but if somebody says this proves that this particular thing works in a certain way, I usually change the wording for them. I edit it. So I don't like the word prove, actually. We provide evidence that, and we have very strong evidence that face masks work. And we've known that for at least 400 years. I mean, this is a 400-year-old picture here of a doctor, bubonic plague, who was wearing a face mask for protection. Now, they had that big long beak on it. They stuffed it full of herbs and various things to filter through that they felt would kind of help with the killing whatever the pathogen was. And they didn't know what a virus was back then. But they knew there was something out there that was bothering people, and they were pretty sure that they were breathing it in. As it turns out, with that particular plague, it probably wasn't being breathed in. It was from flea bites primarily. But that's another story. Anyway, they were using face masks to protect themselves. So, and there was resistance to face masks all through time. I mean, if you go back 150 years ago or so, when they started first really telling doctors to be careful with the patients, wash their hands between surgeries, wear masks to protect them, things like that. Doctors had a lot of resistance to all of that at first. Why should I have to wash my hands? But we've learned since then that it's really important to wash your hands to avoid exposure to pathogens, to wear face masks. You'd be horrified if you went in surgery and the doctor wasn't wearing a surgical face mask. And you should be, because you could very well die from it. In fact, if you do surgery on a rabbit, you have to wear a face mask and gown up and everything, because you kill a rabbit pretty easily. They get infections just as easily as people do. Rats, you don't have to bother with. But anyway, like we said, to summarize it, the innate immune system can handle a small amount of the virus. Large exposures require the adaptive immune response. But, people in Asia wear face masks when they get sick all the time. I noticed that the first time I went to Korea, it was 20 some years ago, that, people were wearing face masks. And it was a common, and still is a very common thing. Anytime somebody has a cold or flu, they wear a face mask to protect the people around them. And it's a good idea. I hope people continue wearing face masks when they're sick here, because it's a good practice. Now, I will also say a lot of people are out there saying, well, what about boosting your immune system? Won't this protect you? Well, it will help, no question about it. And diet is great. Exercise, unless you do too much, is great. Now, if you go run a marathon, interestingly, a marathon runner will have a suppressed immune system for several days after running that marathon. Excessive immune exercise to that extent will suppress the immune system. In fact, when we want to make suppressed rats or mice, we make them swim to exhaustion. And then just before they drown, pull them out of the water. It seems a little bit mean. Anyway, that's one way it's done. And then you got to immunosuppress mouse for a few days. And then you can compare different treatments to help with the immunosuppression. And that's done quite a bit in research. So, exhaustive exercise to that extent suppresses your immune system. So be aware of that. Actually, if you really do go out and run a 20K or something, you better watch out for the next few days for the coronavirus and be really careful, because your immune system is not going to be where it should be for a few days. But generally, exercise, good nutrition, these are all things that help your immune system. There are also specific things that you can use, nutrients that particularly help it. And we'll just mention some of these briefly. Quercetin is one. And recently, a study actually, and this is this year, tested 2 groups of 76 patients each, all who had early stage COVID infections. And they put them all on a either standard care or 500 milligrams of quercetin twice a day, plus the standard care, and compared the 2 groups. All returned home after the infection, after going to the doctor. None were hospitalized immediately. But one of the outcomes they used was how many ended up being hospitalized. And the patients who were hospitalized, they were the same size groups, remember, 76 each. Among the patients with just standard care, 22 of those, around almost a third of them, were hospitalized. Only 7% of the ones who also got standard care, but the quercetin, were hospitalized. And it was significantly different. That's a big difference, 22 versus 7. Days of hospitalizations for the ones that were hospitalized averaged almost 7 days for the ones that received standard care. The ones that had gotten the quercetin, a day and a half average. These are very big differences. So quercetin looks like a pretty promising. This is just one research, not huge, one study, but it looks like a pretty promising. Now, there's some weaknesses to the study. It's not a double-blinded study. And you might say, well, that might, is it possible that there was some bias in the selection of patients and things like that? Well, I don't know. They were randomly chosen according to the paper to which group they were put in, but it looked like a really a very good, promising study anyway. I wish they had done it double blind, but they didn't. That would have made it a little bit stronger. It was a study that was funded by a company that makes a quercetin product. And people also worry sometimes about whether, that would influence the outcome if they would just try to get the results they want. But, these are pretty big differences. It's unlikely that you would see that big a difference just from their randomization or something like that. So with this huge of a difference, this really looks promising. I hope there'll be more follow-up research on it that's a little bit stronger, but I really feel like it's something to take seriously. I mean, I would, at this point, if I became infected, I would definitely start taking quercetin based on this. And we don't sell quercetin as a standalone product right now, but I'm looking very strongly at that and the type they use for that matter. Also, lysine is sort of interesting. The research isn't as strong for lysine right now. Whole Foods Magazine interview by Richard Passwater recently suggested that lysine may be effective for COVID. Lysine's been used for decades to treat cold sores caused by the herpes simplex virus. Arginine is required for the replication of the herpes virus. Arginine is, and it appears that lysine binds to those arginine receptors because they're sort of similar and keeps the arginine from doing its job. And basically what happens is it keeps the virus from replicating when it doesn't have the arginine available. Also, lysine has been shown in test tubes to inhibit the MERS coronavirus replication. So that's getting a little bit better. However, there's some anecdotal reports out there of COVID being helped by it, but there's not anything really published good yet as far as a study for lysine. So I don't really feel comfortable saying that lysine works, but you'll probably almost certainly be hearing about it. The research isn't there. The theoretical basis for it is because they do work on a similar mechanism as the herpes virus. So I would say, if you want to take lysine, if you've been exposed, I would say go for it. It's pretty safe. I wouldn't use large doses of lysine as a preventive because arginine, you don't want to really block it all the time either. It has some pretty good effects, actually. It can help reduce blood pressure for one. So, using high doses of lysine to block arginine on an ongoing basis is a bad idea. But temporarily, I would say that's fine. There's other things too. We all know that things like zinc, vitamin A and C are generally good for the immune system. We've talked about these before, so we'll just brush over them pretty quickly. Dose is really important for zinc, however. Studies have shown that the immune system can be impaired by either too little zinc or too much zinc. So don't go out there and take, 50 milligrams of zinc 5 or 6 times a day. That's too much and it won't help. And it may harm. But 30 to 50 milligrams per day of zinc should keep your immune system where it needs to be as far as zinc is concerned. Should be plenty. Vitamin A also in moderate doses. Vitamin C appears to be very safe, but there's no clear evidence that very high doses have much effect on viruses, really, that I've seen. 1,000 milligrams a day should be plenty. Ideally, either time released or divided doses during the day. Elderberry, we did a whole talk on that before, and if you're interested, you might want to look that up. It really has some pretty substantial antiviral and immunostimulatory effects. It's pretty interesting, and I think we have this on the company Facebook page, that particular one. If you go back and look at it, I'm not sure. That's one we did quite a while ago, so I don't remember for sure. But if it's not there and you want to contact us and watch it, we can make it available to you. Beta glucan is also a good immunostimulant and probably helpful for prevention. But COVID is new enough. There's not a lot of research out there yet on nutrients specifically for COVID-19. They're just starting to become available. So that will kind of wrap this up for today. But to kind of go back and recount a little bit of it, face masks really do work. A combination of face mask and social distancing should just about prevent you from getting COVID, to be honest, unless you have a very, very, very bad immune system. And, some places like China, where this all started, have really kept it under control by that very thing. If they see an outbreak, they have everybody locked up and they don't go out of the house. Really, they close things down and that stops it. You could never do that here. You tell people they can't leave the house for a week or two, people are going to rebel. It just won't happen. And I think everybody knows you tell people to wear a face mask and they get mad. So, it's we're a pretty stubborn bunch here in this country, I guess. But you can stop the coronavirus just by social distancing and wearing face masks. And if you do get a little bit of it, you're a small amount, like we said, the innate immune response will take care of a small exposure to it. So, doing these very simple things and then staying healthy, using good nutrition, using moderate exercise at least, keeping your body healthy. And really there's, these simple things would stop it if people would do it. Vaccines can help too. And that's even a hotter topic. But, people can prevent COVID and just by using very simple methods almost every time. Do we have any questions, any discussion? Shingman may know more about China than I do, just a little. But, they have really controlled it primarily just by having people social distancing. Am I correct, Shingman?
Yes, but that's not the best way to do it. Because that damage, the economy, people's regular life.
Yeah. It's a painful way to do it.
Yeah, it's a painful way to do it.
Yeah.
Even it works, but it's not the best way. It's not a sustainable way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why the combination of trying to do social distancing, even going about your daily work and wearing a mask, will accomplish almost as much. I mean, you can really, you know, if you're uh, if you're doing those two things, maintaining distance from people and wearing a mask, you shouldn't get the COVID infection unless you're really severely immunocompromised. Um, but still, I do recommend most people to get a vaccination. I've gotten it, so and I still do the social distancing and mask wearing. So you know, I want to do what I can to stay healthy, and staying healthy means not getting COVID for one thing, as well as avoiding uh, contaminated eating good foods, not eating junk foods. Those are all important too. But we need to do all of it to stay healthy. Anybody else have any questions or observations? None.
So I was
This is a real
watching
topic. Huh?
a documentary the other day. Maybe it was just a news segment, but they were saying that the blue surgical masks really do not do a good job preventing the spread of the particles. That you need to take the blue mask. Well, actually, you really need an N95 mask.
Yeah.
Essentially. But if you do have a blue mask, the way to make it efficient from transmitting the virus is to take a dry baby wipe, sandwich it between two blue surgical masks, and then you need something to press it all the way against your face, like one of the like a headband or something that's like mashed against your face. So like if you can feel the breath coming out the edges of your mask, then it's not being effective.
Yeah, it's not as effective.
Yeah.
It won't project like coming out the sides or the bottom as much. It'll decrease the distance you need to be from the person still. But it will the more leaking you have around the sides and stuff, the more exposure you'll get. But so it's not an all or none type situation with masks. Yeah, the better mask you have, the more you'll do it. But covering your mouth like that would help a lot if you're coughing or sneezing. So, but you just need to be more distance from people if you don't have a good mask. And another thing about it, I tried at the gym. The little things you put on your finger to measure your oxygen. A lot of people complain about masks, and well, you can't wear them when you're exercising because you won't get the oxygen. But I got on the elliptical machine and without it and measured it, and then I put that oxygen meter thing and worked out really hard on the elliptical machine, and it didn't make any difference. Measurable on that. I couldn't see any fluctuation in oxygen concentration at all with or without a mask. So it may be more psychological. I know if I have a mask that sucks in when I breathe in, I feel like I'm suffocating. I like something that's more rigid like this, that has a space here, so that inside, I don't feel like I'm being suffocated when I stuck the mask into my face. And this is a KN95, so it should do a pretty good job. But it gives you that airspace inside there, so you're not feeling like you're being totally cut off.
It's ironic that the hardcore strength and conditioning training people at the gym, they actually, before COVID, they were wearing the masks that would restrict your oxygen to help them train for like heavy bouts and fights and things of that nature. They would actually wear like oxygen reducing masks in order to help them with their training. So now people are kind of against training with them on. I don't want to do it because it's hard. I don't want to restrict my breathing, but some people felt that it was helping them in their training.
That's the funny thing, though. I couldn't tell when I did it that it made any difference in the oxygen concentration in blood. Because I specifically was looking to see how much difference it would make, and it didn't make a difference. I don't know. They're real cheap to put on. You buy them if you want to try it. They're not expensive.
Yeah, the breathing restriction masks, I used to look at those before the pandemic and everything like that, and they're specially designed. They're not like a normal, just like.
Oh, they're not like a normal mask?
They're not. They're specially designed to restrict air intake and expel. And you have different levels so that you don't have to start off with just no oxygen. You can literally ramp them up to having less and less, breathable air. And that was a big thing, for quite a while to restrict that. And it makes from what I was reading before the pandemic, is basically is training your body to utilize its oxygen that it has available to it better, more efficiently, because it has less.
I've heard of some mountain climbers before they go to the Himalayas or something to get spend time in low oxygen chambers to mimic the high altitudes. So yeah, the way I did it back in those days is I just went up there and camped for a week or two at the high altitude before trying to do the climb, acclimate like that. But yeah, that's another day, another story. But yeah, it's you do adapt to that. But the regular masks, as far as I can tell, don't really affect your oxygen. That's one of the things that bother a lot of people. They think that they can't do their workout right because they're not getting the oxygen, when they do it. And I can't say that for some people it may be true, but for me, I couldn't make it make a difference. I really was going after it and still, I couldn't get it to change. So
yeah, I have not been back to the gym for that reason, because I can't choose to wear a mask when I work out, so I just work out at home.
Yeah, I'm going back to the gym again. What I do is I go early in the morning so the gym's not crowded and I can stay away from people. I don't like wearing a mask in the gym. I carry it in my pocket. If a whole bunch of people come in, then I can put it on. But as long as I can stay away from people, 10, 15 feet away from them, usually I can. I'm fine, because the one I go to is a pretty large gym. And so I don't get close to people there. I make a point of not doing it. And, it is annoying to wear a mask when you work out. No question about it. I think it's more psychological than physiological, but it's still there. So anything else? The internet's full of all kinds of quote information about the coronavirus, and most of it's bad information. But when people talk about masks not working, it just is wrong. I mean, and you can, like I said, you can just do the experiments yourself and try it. If you can't blow out a candle with a mask on, you're not going to be able to blow viruses across a room either. And literally a cough or a sneeze can project them for 10, 15 feet easily, if not further. And that's going to prevent that if you're wearing a mask. It won't prevent any exposure. But like I say, you don't have to prevent all exposure to the virus. You just have to keep the viral load down so that you can handle it. That's all you really have to do. Well, any other questions or thoughts or observations? I mean, I'm sure some of you know some things I don't know about the topic. Probably. So, the immune system is a wonderful thing, actually. And it's amazing how it works. But we need to give it all the help we can. And So I guess with that, we'll sign off. I guess I will see you all next time. Hopefully talk to most of you much sooner than next time, actually, everybody here. But let's stay healthy, stay safe, and have a great rest of the week. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.